What it is, YouTube, my name is Batman, and the Scar H has always been one of my favorite weapons on any game, from MW2 to Battlefield 3, and that's because the Scar H, regardless of what game it's on, is always a gun that makes its fame and secures its place on the mantle of glory based on its power. It is not a finesse weapon, it is not a precision tool, it is not the scalpel you use to perform surgery, it is the katana used for harakiri, ritual honor-based disembowelment. Now, I'm going to be analyzing some numerical statistics here regarding the Scar H, and I'm getting this info from simthick.com. I'll be linking them in the description. I highly recommend checking them out. They have very accurate statistical analysis of all the nitty-gritty weapon deets, and not just in Battlefield, but a variety of games, and they are more accurate than Battlelog, in my opinion. It seems like Battlelog rounds up all its numbers, which can lead to some pretty serious inaccuracies in certain instances. Now, in Battlefield 4, the Scar H is a high damage weapon. At its max close range under 8 meters, it's 34 damage per bullet, so a 3-bullet kill. And I believe that's the highest damage of any assault rifle available. The damage drop-off seems largely irrelevant. You lose 2 damage points per 10 meters, and I won't make you do all that confusing math. All you need to know is that after 10 meters, it goes from a 3-shot kill to a 4-shot kill, and assuming your target has full health, it'll be a 4-bullet kill from then on. It stays 4-bullet kill no matter what, because the minimum damage for the Scar is 25 damage per bullet at the farthest of ranges. And to put that in perspective, for every other assault rifle available to you, 25 damage per bullet is actually the max damage possible. Now, when people hear high damage, I think they automatically assume it's a short-range weapon, but the Scar H is actually very malleable, and because the damage drop-off is so insignificant, it can be used very effectively at a long range on top of packing a punch close quarters. And you can set up the attachments in a way that allows it to be a sort of all-purpose piece of power equipment. You can hang out the window, take out a guy across the courtyard, then turn around and spray down some dumbasses rushing up the stairs to destroy your forward fortified position. So the key is getting the attachments right. For a balanced weapon that will be effective in both short and long range scenarios, you should bust out a one-time scope. And the Scar H does have shitty iron sights, in my humble opinion. With that in mind, if you're leveling it up for the first time, you're probably going to want to keep it close quarters until you've unlocked the necessary attachments. So a one-time scope, a laser sight, the tri-beam preferably, because the Scar H is high damage, close quarters, but it also has a pretty fat hip spread, to the point that hip firing isn't really an option without a laser sight. And with a lot of assault rifles, the hip fire spread isn't going to make a huge deal in either case, because even if you hit all the bullets, you're not doing enough damage for it to make a significant difference in who wins the gunfight. But because the Scar is a 3-bullet kill, whereas the majority of other weapons you run into, excluding SMGs and shotguns, will be capped at a 4-bullet kill, in theory, they could get the first shot on you and you could still end up winning the gunfight if you hit all your shots. And that'll apply to a lot of those hectic situations you run into if you're fighting indoors in hallways or on staircases where you turn a corner and the enemy turns a corner and it's time for a duel. Well, in those situations, the laser sight on the Scar can very well be, and often is, the difference between you killing that asshole and you getting killed by that asshole. A good example would be on Operation Locker. You know how you have that big circular room and around the edges are those winding staircases leading up to a window that overlooks the entire room? Sorry, my callouts aren't very developed at this point, but you know what I'm talking about, alright? Well, you're fighting up in that window with the Scar, you're popping motherfuckers left and right, and when they start rushing your position and you have to fight them on the staircase, you can wait for them to come into view and then just hip fire while you move up the stairs at the same time. The bad guy is going to get sprayed down, and with such high damage, even 1 or 2 bullets, you've basically already won the gunfight. If he has time to ADS, he'll be going stationary, making the kill that much easier for you, and since you're already hitting him with high damage bullets, he's not going to be able to outgun you, especially because you're a moving target and he's already suffering from recoil. But most likely, you spray him down before he even knows what happened, and since you're backpedaling upwards the stairs as you fire, you're also moving out of vision of other enemies, potentially and most likely on the heels of the guy you're shooting, and then you can fucking throw a grenade down there for all them motherfuckers to run into. So, whereas without the laser sight, you have to go stationary to ADS because he's moving up the stairs. You might miss the shot, suffer from recoil, and he'll turn on you, and more likely he has a buddy coming up the stairs behind him who gets a line of sight on you because you were stationary. So laser sight allows for extra mobility in those tight quarters, and it's going to let you make the most of your high damage bullets. High damage bullets aren't worth that much if you're missing. So you're going to miss a lot because it has bad hip fire spread to begin with. So that's why you want to run that laser sight. And that's a good example of where a balanced SCAR can excel, and I realize that's a very specific scenario, you know, talking about Operation Locker, but you can apply that methodology to any situation where you have immediate access to both a long-range firefight and a close-range firefight simultaneously. Obviously, my prime example is switching in between gunfighting from a building and then immediately going to gunfighting inside the building. But there are plenty of other situations, like on that map Zavod 311. On Rush or Obliteration, you got to traverse across wide open rolling hillsides, but then the bomb site itself is in a tiny little bunker where you're basically touching dicks with anyone you would be fighting. Any situation like that where you really want the best of both worlds and you want to be able to switch into them seamlessly, you know, without having to die and go re-customize your classes, that's where a balanced SCAR comes in handy. But I digress. I just skipped to giving you the recommended scenarios without providing all the recommended attachments. Laser sight, one-time scope. For the barrel, I recommend flash hider or suppressor or no barrel. Flash hider reduces the bullet flash, obviously, or takes it away completely, which is helpful, and there is no penalty. But the suppressor's big advantage, obviously, is you're not showing up on radar when you shoot, but it's also going to have slightly negative impact on your long-range accuracy and your hip fire. I personally felt I could deal with the negative impacts of the suppressor, but the less gun skill or battlefield experience you have, the harder that's going to be. So, the muzzle brake and the compensator, I recommend for a long-range emphasis SCAR H, but for a balanced setup, both those barrels are going to fuck with you in the short and long-range gunfight. So I don't recommend either of those, and I also don't recommend the heavy barrel, period, because in theory it gives you stronger long-range capabilities, but because it's adding significantly to the SCAR's already sizable recoil, it's going to be a net negative for long-range gunfight ambitions. For the grip, you want to bust out an angled or folding grip. This is going to reduce the recoil of the first bullet by 33%, which is a very noticeable and comfortable difference, and choosing one of these grips is what's going to allow you to use the SCAR effectively in long-range gunfights, because what you want to do is switch to burst fire. It's a 2-round burst, and since the first bullet isn't throwing your aim off course too badly, then generally as long as you hit that first bullet, you'll hit the second, and then you just have to repeat that process one more time, because 2 bursts is 4 bullets, which is a guaranteed kill no matter what with the SCAR, because its minimum damage is 25. And used that way, the SCAR H is a very efficient long-range killer. So to sum it up, for a balanced SCAR H setup, use a one-time scope with a laser sight, an angled grip, a flash hider barrel, you know, I personally tend to switch out the flash hider for the suppressor, but that is a personal preference thing. Now, if you want to take it to the logical extreme in either long or short ranges, for long range, switch out the laser sight for a 2x magnifier and use either the muzzle brake or a compensator instead. These will increase the recoil when you're firing full auto, but since full auto isn't going to work at those longer ranges anyways, full auto nerfs in theory don't matter. For an emphasis on close quarters rushing, keep the laser sight, switch out the one-time scope for traditional RDS or hollow sight, bust out the stubby or potato grip, which will increase your full auto accuracy by 15%, and this is helpful particularly with the SCAR H because it has a very low magazine count, only 20 bullets. That's its biggest drawback, its biggest weakness, and that means in close quarter situations like Operation Locker or whatever, you really want to be hitting all of your shots. You don't have a lot of room for error, and in those situations, if you miss a bunch and have to reload while the guy you were just shooting at is still alive, he's just going to bum rush you around the corner, right? So stubby or potato grip, and then just revert back to either flash hider or suppressor, and keep in mind suppressor is going to be much more useful in close quarters scenarios. So those are the 3 setups I recommend. I personally prefer the balanced setup with the suppressor, and the thing I thought I should mention also is be careful about the reload animation. I know FPS veterans like to enter sprint as soon as the mag is in the gun, but I'm telling you, several times I've done that and found out to my extreme displeasure that the reload had not completed, and that sucks. So yeah, be wary of this trickery. If you found the video helpful, please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more Battlefield 4 tips and tricks. When COD is released, I will be focusing on that for a while, but I'm hoping that by like January I'll have been able to have covered all of the guns and vehicles in Battlefield 4, along with some best class setups and neat things like that as well. May the Force guide you in your quest to secure justice for the Empire, and may the Force guide us all. This is Batman, signing out.